why did you decide هلا you have a podcast صح؟ بس what motivates you إنه to pass that هيك these messages to people and tell me I mean about how did you start and why you have that drive to pass all these messages to young generation, to guys who are looking for meaning in their life.
It's more of the topics that we don't speak about in the Arab world that we need to speak about in the Arab world, you know, or the topics that we don't speak about but people need to hear, because you know when we're young we're not taught, like we don't teach ourselves how to walk, we don't teach ourselves how to run, we don't teach ourselves how to eat, drink. But when it comes to mental health, when it comes to dealing with life mentally, somehow we're expected to teach ourselves.
We are alone.
Yeah, somehow we're expected, and the stigma is you teach yourself this. We go to a therapist. No, I don't go to a therapist. Talk to a psychiatrist. No, I can't talk to a psychiatrist. Don't do this, do that. Go play some sports and it will solve everything, you know.
Yeah, you know, that's I never thought of it like that way.
Exactly.
It's totally true. It's 100% true.
We people expect us to teach ourselves everything mentally in our lives when there are people who are specialized in that. There are people who have went to university, gotten degrees to teach you how to deal with stuff mentally. And I always say, and I always tell people, with stuff like therapists and psychiatrists, don't wait until something is wrong, then you go. The best part is when you go before anything goes wrong, because their job is to equip you with tools that you will have and need if something goes wrong, or when something goes wrong, you already know how to manage it. And even if you don't know how to manage it, you will understand why you don't know how to manage it. You will understand why you're going through these specific emotions, specific feelings that are locking you from being able to manage it. So the more you understand about yourself, the more confident you become in yourself, and the more confident you become in dealing with stuff that have to do with yourself or with others. So I'm a psychology major, and my dad has played such a big role in my life, you know, psychologically. Everything I say, anything I say is my dad. You know, so when I started my own podcast, I did that because I realized the clips that I put out from other podcasts were getting millions and millions of views and people were loving them. So I'm always looking for that purpose. So I started my own podcast because personally, for me, it's like a private diary with me and my dad. Everything my dad has ever taught me, everything my dad has ever told me about, I have it on tape now. I have lessons and videos of it that I can always look back to. But for my audience, it's to touch as many people as I possibly can through my career, through my platform, and to also help everyone going through, if it's just even 5% of an experience that I went through. If I share 100% of my story and it helps 5% of theirs, then I feel like I did enough, you know.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure you're gonna make your father proud of you. But Ziyad, it's also what you said, that we never think that okay, we don't have to get taught to be you know, to fix our mental health problems and or you know, or tackle that part in our life. And also ourselves, we feel that, you know, it's either a taboo and I don't want to speak about it. It's not that they don't teach you how to do it or to go to a psychiatrist, but also you consider that it's something I have to manage it as a person. And the parents as well, they might say, okay, it's just like what's wrong with you. They will find alternative not solutions, alternative problem that they can relate to you, but to say it's a mental problem, or it's a really psychology, or it's a stress, or it's a anxiety. They don't like, oh, just go, as you said, like go to gym, or what's wrong with you, it's the problem is from you. So why is these taboos that we as a person we believe that yeah, I need to fix my, it's the problem is me, is not the, it's not a social issue that it's affecting everybody. We always make it our own problem.
Because I feel like with dealing with life mentally and mental health, you have to dig deep, to see it. You have to dig deep to see it, to learn about it, to know more about it. So again, I'm just gonna always say that we are babies in mental health until somebody comes and teaches us. So if you give me two babies, right? One of them, their parents taught them how to walk properly, run properly, and eat properly. And then one baby, nobody taught him anything. Eventually, he will learn a little bit by just looking around him and learning from others. But the person who was taught will always be a lot better, because they will depend on their own way that they were taught how to run, walk, eat, whatever it is. So here's the problem. When you are not taught anything about your own ways of dealing with your mental health, what you first start to do is you start comparing yourself to those around you.
Mm-hmm.
So you see someone else going through a problem, and deep down, deep inside, you're going through a similar problem. You look at how they're dealing with the problem and you think this is the way you should be dealing with the problem. Maybe they're dealing with it very well, and you think this is the way I should be dealing with it. This is where I should be at when I'm dealing with that problem. And that creates that, extra difficult times mentally, because comparison is the enemy. Comparison is the enemy of success in anything. So when you try to compare yourself to someone who's going through a similar situation, and you're not going through the situation as well or as bad, whatever it is, this is where the problem happens. But if you learn more about yourself, if you know more about your mental health, your ways of dealing with your situations, your scenarios, as you go through them in life, you learn to not only stop comparing yourself to other people, but then you also learn that you find value in helping other people go through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe this is the problem more in the Arab world, where we just judge too quick from the outside without digging deep. Anything that requires digging deep and knowing more, we struggle to understand.
I feel also, especially with men, we are shy a little bit about talking about some, expressing our emotions or some mental issues that we are facing through our childhood. Just like the thing that we hear, you need to man up. You need to be stronger. You need to be, not talk about these issues. It's either we feel, or we tell people or our kids that it's a weakness, to talk about this. What's wrong with you?
Emotions.
Yeah. But you talked about, like, we compare ourselves with other people, but it's important now that we are talking about it, so people are listening. And the more we normalize these topics, and that we say that, every one of us has some issues that we need to, it's mental health is something like any other health, it's like physical health, like like blood test, like any other issue. So the more we talk about it, it's something that can relate to people and say, what, just like if he is a boxer and he is a champion, and then he has these problems, then what, I'm okay to say I have it.
Of course.
If I see that successful person or that famous actor, or and talking about some mental health, some weaknesses which we all have. So it's very important to talk about it.
We always, the thing is, we're always told and we're always taught to control our emotions, right? Everybody's always telling you, you have to control your emotions, you have to control yourself. And then we think that controlling your emotions means containing them, when really part of controlling your emotions is to let them out. You have to sometimes let them out, because if you don't occasionally let out your emotions, then you are not really controlling them. Because what happens is, if you try to contain emotions for too long, and that's part of controlling them, what happens is they will come out. You will let them out, either you like it or not, but you will let them out in the wrong way, at the wrong person. And we've all been through it. We've all contained emotions for too long without letting them out, and they come out on something you didn't want.
They will
for it
explode.
to exactly explode on someone you didn't want for them to explode to, someone that has nothing to do with what you're going through, with the problem you're going through. Or they will explode on something that has nothing to do with it either, a project you're working on that you don't want to work on it anymore because you're trying to contain emotions instead of letting them out. But we don't let them out because we don't know how. And even if we think this is the way to let them out, we're not confident in it. We're not sure that this is the way that I should let out my emotions. And this is where everything ties into seeing a life coach, seeing a mental performance coach, seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist. All these are very different people in one field. You know, a life coach is not a mental performance coach. A mental performance coach is not a therapist. A therapist is not a psychiatrist. They all do very different things depending on what you need, what you want. So what I'm trying to say is, once you start speaking to any of them, the hardest part is that once, you know, then the second time and the third time and the fourth time become amazing. But just once you push yourself to that first time where you go and speak to one of them, where you go and seek, don't even think about it as I'm seeking help. Think about it as I'm seeking knowledge. I want to have more knowledge about myself, and I want to have more knowledge about life. There shouldn't be something wrong before you speak to them, like I said. So when you go and you decide, I want to speak to a therapist, psychiatrist, mental performance coach, or even a life coach, just to help me navigate life, that's knowledge. And the more knowledge you have about yourself, the more knowledge you have about others. And the more knowledge you have about others, the more knowledge you have about life. So the more knowledge you have, the smoother the ride becomes. You know, you start, I'm not saying you're going to avoid problems. You're still going to meet the problems. You're still going to face the situations, but you will avoid not knowing how to deal with the problems, not knowing how to deal with the situations. You will meet the difficulties, you will meet the problems, but you will know how to navigate. And again, even if you don't know how to navigate, you will understand why you don't know how to navigate. That's the beautiful thing about them. So it is very important to talk about that aspect about mental health, especially in the Arab world, especially about men. Just break that stigma of, I want to talk, but I can't talk.
Yeah, it's a culture problem that we all have it. And this is a culture problem that always hides these areas, mental health, even some other things like, you know, we're not used to saving, we're not used to insurance, we're not used to these things that are coming in the future for us. We always depend on, okay, what I'm gonna do right now, if I have a problem, it should be physical and very visual in front of me to believe in it. And then we just put things for the future, like, okay, we're gonna depend on God or depend on luck or anything, and these things we don't really address them very, very well. It's a culture, and if we compare it, I mean, we have the best culture, but we can compare it with other culture and see what are why they are doing maybe on that part probably better, see what's the positive, what's the negative, and take for us what fits us as a culture. One of them is the really being open and normalize that part where mental health is very, very important. Another thing is just when you said we suppress our feelings, we don't take them out. We don't know how to say no as well. And this is a very common thing that I find in my culture, in my, let's say, family, how I was raised. It was hard to say no. You know, it's always like we've been told what to do, and this is how our parents thought about it. And then to express yourself, what you like, what you don't like, and knowing how to say no for things. And it's not your fault. It's very important to say these words. It's not my fault. It's not my problem. And I don't have to take all these, you know, pressures. And it could be other people's problems. It could be that I don't want to be in this situation or that job or anything. It's very hard to have a self-awareness, and you talked about this one a lot.
Yeah. I speak about, and I always tie saying no with self-value. And I'm just saying that the biggest part where you start finding self-value, the first step to finding self-value is to say no, is to start learning how to say no. The more you start saying no, the more self-value you start obtaining, you know, the more self-value you start gaining. Because here's the thing, no and self-value comes from setting your standards. So when you set your specific standards on who you want to deal with, what you want to deal with, what you want to get into, what you don't want to get into, when you start setting those standards, that's where the self-value comes in. But those standards only come from saying no. But when you don't say no, when you lower your standards for other people, for other situations, you also lower your value. So you start becoming a person of little value that is just everywhere and anywhere all at once, doing everything. So this is the biggest part about
Ziyad, you know why
self-value.
we don't say no? Because we always we thought, or this is how our parents taught us, especially mothers, because father is a bit tougher, is to be nice. And we always tie the no to something negative, where it can be positive. Sometimes you can say no, and actually you end up with the result of your saying no is something positive to the person you said no to, because it's gonna avoid problems, or it's gonna avoiding you saying no in the future, but in a bigger explosive way, where you just like said yes, but you didn't mean to said yes, you're just being nice. And then you were afraid to say no, but by time, once it's accumulate, by time you're gonna say the big no, and you're gonna explode, and you're gonna be the bad person at the end of the day.
Sometimes no is the nicest thing to say. You know, I always go by that, you know, sometimes no is the nicest thing to say. It's the best thing to say, because what that no could lead to is better than what the yes is ever going to lead to, you know? Sometimes you could say yes about something that you don't really understand. You could say yes about helping someone with something that you don't understand, and it's going to lead to something a lot worse than if you say no. But this is where the beauty of the Arab world comes, though. You know, that's what I'm thinking about right now, where the beauty of the Arab world comes from that niceness.
We want to be nice.
Comes from that kindness. So how about, instead of saying yes about everything that maybe we don't know more about, we don't know much about, we can't do a lot in. So instead of saying yes all the time, when you say no, the difference between us and the Western world will be, we will have an alternative. So, can you do this for me, for example? No, I don't want to, I can't, but I know someone that can, but I know something that can help you, you know? So you're still trying to help in the best ways you can. It's just you can't do it yourself. This is, I believe, the separation between us and the West, where we will have that alternative. We will still offer that help, still offer that support.
which is
but
nice
in other ways.
But it's sometimes it's you say yes because you don't want to be too nice, and then you want to help. Yes, of course, I know. Of course, I will help, and then we lie about it as well. You know, we disappear, and we create another reason why we disappeared, and then it's shocking. I'm not saying in general. I don't want to generalize, you know, but these are things that we fall with, because we are all feeling nice, and we tie that, like the word saying no, to a bad thing, which where it shouldn't be tied to bad thing. It can be really, you know, this I can't, maybe next time, maybe. I mean, you're saying like it can. Yeah, I can help you with this. You can give an alternative. That's a nice way to
and
put it.
this is with the other people, but circling back to the self-value, the more self-value you have in life, the easier life starts to become dealing with people. So the more self-value you have, the more self-awareness you will have, the more self-esteem you will have, the more self-confidence you will have.
The more respect you will get.
Exactly. But the more respect you will have for yourself as well, for yourself, you know, from yourself and from others as well. So the more you start, you know, putting your foot on the ground and sticking your foot in the mud, and sometimes just saying no when you feel like you're going against your morals, you're going against your characters, your values, sometimes you have to say no. And it's okay to say no. But what stops us from saying no the most is the fear of losing who we will say no to. The fear of losing what we will say no to. So if we get an opportunity, a big opportunity, but we know deep down that it goes against our values, it goes against our morals, we don't want to say no because we're scared we're going to lose the opportunity. And if we're dealing with someone, for example, in a relationship or in a friendship, and they come and they want us to do something against our morals, against our values, or against our characters, or if they do something that you don't agree with, and you feel like if you say no, if you disagree with what they did, you will lose them. But the thing is, if you feel that way, then you are meant to lose them. You are not supposed to feel that way if you say no. In a proper, healthy relationship, friendship, or an opportunity, it has to be available even after saying no. So if you feel like saying no will eliminate these people from your life or eliminate that opportunity from your life, then that opportunity and these people should be eliminated from your life.
Yes. And to the relationships, I mean, I can give an example also with the relationships with girls. Let's say if you are meeting a girl and how girls look at guys, the more you say no, it relates to them as you're confident and you are actually a person that I want to end up my life with that person, because he's saying no most of the time. But when we were children, when we were a child, and the way we taught to be nice, and we related the no to the bad thing, and we always say, okay, yes, I like this, yes, you want to go there, I will go with you, okay, you want to eat that, of course, everything is yes, 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 yes. And it most of the time it doesn't go to the end result that we are looking for. It's a personality thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It ties the confidence not even just with the relationships or with the girls, anything in
business,
work, in business, whatever it is. This is, saying no is part of that ladder
it's
of
the
a
positive
promoter.
no. There is a book about
Exactly.
that. It's called The Positive No.
Oh, really?
It's very important. Yeah.
It's a very important thing to just know, and then self-value, obtaining that is extremely important. But it's just the fear of losing people and the fear of losing opportunities is always keeping us from saying no, when it should be the opposite. Because when you say no to an opportunity, when you say no to people, when the right opportunity comes, you will know exactly that this is the one, because you're not saying no, even though deep down you can, but there's nothing to say no about. So this is the right opportunity.
Ziyad, you talked about achievements, and you talked about that you don't have to be 100% ready to take any decision in life, because sometimes we want to that moment where we are ready to be brave and to be strong and to take that decision. Whatever it's a career, it's whatever it's something that we want to achieve, or a goal, or I want to hit the gym once I'm ready. I want to go to that to be a boxer, or to be any dream in my life. But you know what? Just I'm not ready yet. And you said that you don't have to be 100% ready.
Yeah,
to start.
You won't be. You won't be 100% ready. It's you expecting to be 100% ready, 100% sure, is what's stopping you from taking the opportunity or taking the change. When you're embracing change, or when you're trying to move to a new country, change your job, maybe even leave a relationship, the problem with it is you feel until you're 100% sure. So how are you expected and how are you supposed to feel 100% sure about something that's unsure? How are you supposed to feel 100% sure and knowing about something that's unknown? So you aren't supposed to be sure. You aren't supposed to know. And that little part, that little gray area is what keeps you working, is what keeps you, it's what keeps that drive, it's what keeps you working, it's what keeps you searching for better and better always, not only in something else or in someone else, but in yourself as well. It's that gray area, that unknown area.
That little fear.
Exactly, that little fear. So if you're 100% confident, if you're 100%
You're
sure
not gonna
about
do your
change,
best.
you're not going to do your best. And this is where, you know, faith plays such a big part. And not just faith religiously, but faith in yourself, faith in the opportunity, faith in what's written for you, you know. So if you take away the gray area, you take away faith. And if you take away faith, you take away everything. You take away life, you know. So without the gray area, without those little percentages of you're unsure, you won't work as hard. You won't always be searching for what's better, because what makes us better is trying to always look for better. So
yeah, it's the hard work. I mean, we can't take things for granted. Once we are 100% sure that we are ready, then we are taking things for granted. Probably in your boxing career, if you are, I'm 100% gonna win, and it's for granted, you might not do your best, and you might lose the fight.
Exactly. And I went with my school on a business trip to London, and then we were speaking to startups, and one guy was sharing his story, and ever since that day I've had this story with me for life, you know. And it's about the being 100% ready or being 100% equipped. And what that guy was saying was, when he was starting his startup, when he was calling people for meetings, he'd go out, call people, get rejected, but then one guy actually answered the phone and told him, okay, I'll meet with you. He's like, where's your office? He didn't have an office. So he said, I'll send you the address to my office after we end our call. He's like, okay, how long are we gonna meet for? He's like, 1 hour, 2 hours. He said everything, but the whole point here is he didn't have an office. He didn't know the address to an office, but when asked, does he have an office? He said yes. And when he said, where is your office? He said, I'll send you the address after. As soon as he ended this call, he called his friend. He's like, can I borrow your office, please, for an interview that might change everything for me? And he went, he hung up pictures in his friend's office as if it's his own office. He sent the location to the other guy. He met with that guy who is now his biggest investor and partner in the company that they've, you know, started up together. So it's just about saying yes, even if you're not ready, but be confident in you will be ready.
Yes, exactly.
You will become ready. You know?
Once you have the opportunity, you just build up, and then and on the way you can, you know, keep improving and get what's missing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
we can't be 100% ready. You're absolutely right.
Exactly, and that's what ties to a lot of people when you start talking to people about what you want to achieve. Where you want to go, where you see yourself becoming, or where you see yourself to be, they often say, be realistic. You know, you have to be realistic. When what you're doing is only as realistic as you choose for it to be. What you're trying to chase, what you're trying to become, is only as realistic as you make it, as you work for, as you prepare for, as you study for. So if they aren't doing the work, if they aren't doing the studying, if they aren't doing all that stuff, how are they supposed to decide for you if it's realistic or not? It's only as realistic as you're going to make it, as you're going to work for, as you're going to study for. They're going to say it's not realistic because they aren't doing the work for it. They aren't doing the studying for it. They aren't doing all of this for it. So it's okay, expect that they will say it's unrealistic, but that shouldn't stop you from chasing what you believe is realistic, what you see is realistic, what you are confident in working for to make realistic. So that's also the biggest point of just do not wait until you're 100% to make the change. Do not wait until you're 100% to go for it.
Yes, I mean, you should see the potential in you. Exactly. And that's very important. Even if I'm ready, but I have the potential, and potential is something that's very, very, very strong and very important. It's even more, potential is like, you know, when you're a fighter, a young fighter, he has the potential. An older fighter, he has the experience. But potential is really strong. And then even the older fighter will be worried about the potential.
Yeah.
It's something that we don't see. It's always why do we hire young people and young generation, because they have the potential. The only difference is they don't see that. They see that they don't have the experience. But potential is like as important, if not more important, than the experience.
Of course.
In its time, because it's a potential that can grow double and triple and more than any final destination person who has done it. Because you can see that person, he has achieved, and that's his max. Maybe he still have more potential, but that's almost, I can see that person. But a young person will look at that person, we say, oh, he's so big, I don't know if I can be there. He's just removing the potential, removing the time.
Yeah.
And you talked about time is very important. The more time, or the more you believe in time, and you know that it's a process, it's a consistency. Just look at your potential and how much you're ready. 20% ready is enough, 30% ready is enough.
Exactly.
As long as you have the time also to improve it.
Exactly. With patience, nothing ever happens to you. It all happens for you. You know, you just need to have the patience to see that. You need to have the patience to let that play out. And the biggest thing that destroys potential is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is that feeling where you have so much potential and so many people see the potential in you and so many people see where you could be, but you are worried of not meeting those expectations. You are scared of not meeting those expectations, not hitting your potential, not meeting the expectations of others for you and the expectations for yourself, you know, of that you have for yourself. So
tell me more about this. I need to know more about this.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is
because we never know who has it. And the more you know about it, it's something.
So here's the thing. With imposter syndrome, some people when they get that feeling of doubting themselves or doubting what they are going through or who they will become, the problem with imposter syndrome is it never makes you doubt who you are today. Imposter syndrome only makes you doubt who you will become later on and who you were before. So if there is something that doesn't even make you or doesn't even change your emotions in your present, then you shouldn't worry about it, because you can't control the future and you can't change the past. And that's where I spoke about a theory that I spoke about, and I said, I called it the time traveler theory. And I said, with the time traveler theory, if you need to time travel to be sure of something, or if you need to time travel to change something, then you can't control it. And that's what the time traveler theory is. And that's what eliminates imposter syndrome, because that's what imposter syndrome does. Imposter syndrome gives you the feeling of trying to become sure of how good you will become in the future. Or imposter syndrome tries to make you change how maybe bad or struggling you were in the past. But it never changes who you are in the present. Unless you let those feelings of the future and the past affect you, then it changes who you are in the present. So imposter syndrome, when people feel it, when they go through it, they feel like they're going through something very wrong. They feel like they're going through something that is very stressful, that is so much pressure. When really, when you feel imposter syndrome, you're going through something good. That's the right feeling to have, because when you feel imposter syndrome, that means you are walking the road that is less walked. You are walking a road that you haven't seen anyone walk before in your life. No one has walked it. You haven't learned from anyone else, but you haven't seen anyone else do it. So you're feeling unsure about it. But when you feel unsure about it, you should feel good about it, because you're doing something special. And when you're doing something special, you're doing something exciting. And when you're doing something exciting, you're doing something scary. And when you're doing something scary, you're doing something that has a lot of pressure and stress. So when you feel those emotions, don't get shocked by these emotions. When you're doing something big, when you're doing something unique that makes you feel imposter syndrome, how can you expect to do something so good, so big, so important, so exciting, and only feel these good emotions? You have to also expect to feel the pressure, the stress, the doubt. You have to expect these emotions as well, because when you expect emotions, they are so much more easier to deal with. It's, for example, if you're sitting in the podcast right now and you're filming with someone else, and I kick in the door and I walk in and I sit down, you don't have a mug for me, you don't have a mic for me, you don't have a camera for me, so it's a mess. But if we're filming a podcast right now, but we know in 15 minutes, a third guest is going to walk by. We're going to set up a mic. We're going to set up a camera. We're going to have a mug for them. And that's the same thing with your emotions. When you expect specific emotions in specific scenarios, when they rush in, and they will come in quick. Sometimes they will come in so quick, but you've expected them. It doesn't matter how quick they come. It doesn't matter how hard they rush in. As long as you've expected the emotions, you will be able to deal with them. So doubt, pressure, and fear go hand in hand with excitement and happiness, and they just go hand in hand. It's just we need to see both sides of the cup, and that's what imposter syndrome is. So instead of letting imposter syndrome stop you, and when you feel like, I'm not gonna be the person they think I am, I'm not the person who they think I will become, this is not for you to worry about.
Because we always compare ourselves with the future that it never happened yet.
Exactly.
It's not, we don't want to prepare ourselves for it, because I look at the future, I compare myself with the place that now I'm not ready for, but in the future I will be ready for it. But it's just like I go there immediately and I see, okay, now I'm young, I don't know this information, or I'm not strong enough, so I can't be that person.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then if I want to go to the future or to the past, sorry, and then I will see, okay, I did mistakes here, so I look at the negatives and I did some things that I can't change. So the future is a way overwhelming for me, and the present, so I can't move on. So I just like always fail in the presence. Every time I fail, because I can't improve, I can't believe in myself.
Exactly.
It's
and the best part you said was that you're judging your future based on who you are today.
Right now, yeah.
You're judging how good you are going to be later on based on how good you are now. So how does that make sense? How are you trying to judge how much you will achieve later, how much you will be able to handle later based on what you're learning to handle now to help you later? So that's also the biggest part of
and that's the potential that we're talking about. That's the potential. Is this like you have to look at yourself as a potential for the future, which is you're not ready now, and that's fine. But look what you can be and what you can achieve.
Exactly.
And but where it comes from, Ziyad? Is it something like we hear like you're not good enough, or you can't do it, or less encouragement? Where does this come from? Is it something like something that can be solved with psychiatrists? Is this something that from the childhood, something common that we all have it?
I think there are two sides. Okay, there's what the outside will say to you, and there's what the inside will say to you. And the part that controls everything is what the inside will say to you. It's the part that controls everything, and it's the part that starts everything as well. So the minute you start doubting yourself is the same minute you let others doubt you. The same minute you start, becoming stressed, the same minute you let others make you more stressed. And I say that only because what others will do to you will only affect you as much as you let it. If you feel a specific way from inside, what anyone from the outside will say or do won't have any effect on it, won't have any little effect on it. If someone is trying to make you doubt yourself, but you are not doubting yourself at all, what they will say or what they will do will have no effect, because doubt is fueled by confidence, and confidence is fueled by preparation. So if you know you're well prepared, and that gives you so much self-confidence, and that eliminates so much self-doubt. So if someone else that is not well prepared, is not well equipped for what you're doing, tries to make you doubt yourself, how are you going to let that affect you? So it's only going to affect you as much as you let it. But here's the thing as well. Whenever we're in doubt, whenever we're feeling stressed, whenever we feel like we're under pressure, whenever we feel like we're anxious or we're in doubt, that doubt doesn't come from the present. That doubt always comes from the future or the past. If we stay in the present, we are not going to be in doubt. We are not going to be under pressure. We are not going to be stressed. We are not going to be anxious, because it always comes from, what am I going to achieve later on? How am I going to achieve it? If I'm going to achieve it, or I tried to do this before, it didn't work. When I tried this, this happened. When I tried to do it, that happened. So that's where the doubt and the anxiety always comes, when you try to judge yourself today based on your past, or you judge your future based on who you are today.
And the future that you can't control, and you have no say on it.
And the past you can't change.
Yes, exactly.
So if you stay in the present, doubt, fear, pressure, stress, not only will you understand that it's natural, not only will you understand that it's okay, but you will also understand that it's your emotions that you are going to deal with. It's not your emotions that someone else is going to help you deal with it, or it's not your emotions that someone is supposed to control you dealing with it. But with that said, I think life peaks when you speak to someone. Life really peaks when you speak to the mental coach, when you speak to the life coach, when you speak to the therapist, when you speak to the psychiatrist. Because the more confidence you have, the more self-value you have, the more self-value you have, the more self-awareness you have. And all that comes from speaking to these people. So go and speak to them. Don't wait until something is wrong for you to speak to them. And if you wait until something is wrong, you're not too late. Go and speak to them.
Yes, exactly.
Go and speak to them. Even if you wait until something goes wrong, go and speak to them. But it's a lot better if you go and you start speaking to them before something goes wrong. Because it's like a lecture when you speak to these people. When you meet with them every week, or when you call them every day, it's like a lecture. They tell you the stuff that you are maybe going to go through, maybe you're not going to go through, but they teach you how to deal with it if you go through it. And they teach you how to deal with it even if you don't go through it. You know, if you don't go through that specific scenario, this is how you deal with your life. If you go through that specific scenario, this is how you deal with your life. So if it happens, and when it happens, problems, you feel like they're rushing in, they're coming in quick, but you're equipped.
Yes,
you know what to do.
Situation.
You already know mentally where to go, what to say, what to do, how, why you're feeling this way, how you're going to change what you're feeling, and so on and so on.
It's like the dentist. We don't visit the dentist
Exactly.
we feel the pain.
Right, exactly,
you know?
exactly.
Or we should go every 6 months, and even if we don't have any pain, it's just something that we should get ready for it. And it's a culture. We need to teach ourselves about it. I will add to this, it's just like also when you set your own goals, it will help you believe in yourself. Because if you start, even if your goals are very small, I mean, if you start to learn how to set your own goals and have a target in your life, a goal, something you want to achieve, even if it's as small as you want, as small as you can achieve. And once you start to build that confidence through achieving these small goals, it could be like something that's today, you know what, I just want to fix my room. Today, I just want to maybe wash my car or something like that. Just a small task in our life that can give us this positive energy and give us this feeling of, okay, I've done something today. Yeah. Today is a nice day. I have achieved something as small as or as big as you can handle. Not more than that. It's something that if we teach ourselves regularly to achieve, and then that will give you a feeling like, I can do more and more and more, and it was easy. I thought it's hard. So it's important to set our goals, yes, it's great to put dreams and big goals, but it's very important to also to set small goals for us and achieve them like on a daily basis or on a weekly basis.
So with goals, I'm a very big fan of setting goals, setting targets, you know, but I always say you need to set goals and targets without setting a deadline. Don't set a deadline on the targets. Don't set a deadline on the goals. And many will agree, many will disagree.
Exactly. I want to tell you, not everybody will agree with you on this.
Not many people will agree, but what not setting a deadline gives you is, like I told you, comparison is the enemy. And what happens is when we set a deadline to achieve a goal or a target that we set for ourselves, that maybe we've seen other people set for themselves too, we set our deadline based on when they achieved it. We set our deadline based on when they got it done. And so when we become close to the target, close to the deadline, and we're not close to achieving the target, we give up. We let it go. We don't even bother trying. We don't even bother going through, because we say, if he got it done in a month, and if he got it done in a month, and if he got it done in a month, maybe that means I need to get it done in a month. And so you get to day 28 and you're not close to getting it done. So then you drop it. You leave it. You say, this isn't for me. But if you have the goal set, if you have the target set, and the deadline is not set, you know, especially the specific deadline. Like when you said, today I want. Okay, today I want is good. But what time today, when today is up for you.
Yeah, I can give you a middle solution for that. If you set goals that not really, it's your own goals, it's not related to anybody's other achievements. If you don't compare yourself with other people's goals, and you set your own goals and keep them as light as you can achieve them, maybe if you're setting a date for it, it will help you. Maybe, I don't know.
But what goals have you set, or will you set, or will us set, that we haven't seen someone else do something similar to? Naturally, we always compare ourselves to other people. Naturally, our first instinct to judge someone, or our first instinct to judge ourselves, is by judging someone else. You know, the first instinct to judge how good we are going through something, how well we are going to go through something, is by looking at how well someone else went through it, or how well someone else achieved it. So that's the problem with deadlines, and we've seen it so many times. And that's something so big in my career too, because I come from a very different background in my career compared to the other fighters. I come from a very different boxing system in my career compared to the other fighters, but I still want to achieve the same thing they did. And I want to even achieve more than what they did in America, in Europe, and wherever it is. I want to achieve the same, if not more, but with a very different foundation, with a very different building system. So if I start setting deadlines like the expectations they've set based on what they achieved, when I get close to it, I'll feel like I want to give up. And I've been through that feeling, and I've gone through that feeling, and I've fought through that mental battle. But what I found works for me is eliminating the deadline area, as long as I know that there is movement, that there is progress.
I want to ask you also, what's the difference between getting inspiration, looking at other people's work, getting inspired, learning from them, and not to fall into comparing yourself with them, or, you know, having this always whether I can do the same as them or copy them or whatever, you know, which is something that in social media can be also a lot of, you know, it's cloudy around these things, that we always compare ourselves with other, where we don't know where they stand and how much they are happy. But inspiration is very important as well.
Yeah.
Like you as an athlete, and you look at somebody you look up for, and you compare yourself, or you just get inspired from him or her for another person. What's the difference between inspiration and comparing yourself with others?
So there is macro inspiration and there is micro inspiration. And this is where it draws the line between comparison. Comparison only falls in macro inspiration. And what I mean by macro inspiration is if I now have my own podcast, right? It's still starting. I look at your podcast, you have the subscribers, you have the views. I want to take the micro inspiration of, I want to have mugs of brands in my podcast. Maybe I should have this type of mic in my podcast. I'm inspired by that. I want to wear black when I'm doing my podcast. It looks good. I need to have these small lights. That's micro inspiration. It's the details that will make my own journey a lot better going forward. But then macro inspiration is where the comparison kills your own journey. And that's where I say, I want to film my podcast in a studio like this now. Or I want to have this amount of subscribers now. If I don't have that amount of subscribers, I won't be successful. He's successful because he has that subscribers. He's successful because he has those views. That's macro inspiration, where you're trying to get inspiration from stuff that takes work in the journey. So once you start to try to take inspiration only from stuff that will eliminate the journey, that's where comparison kills the journey.
When you look at the results only, when
Exactly,
you look at the achievements only.
So these are, that's macro inspiration, the achievements, the results, because that eliminates your journey.
Yeah.
But the micro inspiration inspires your journey. It pushes your journey. So because I want to have these same mics, because I want to have these cameras or these mugs one day, okay, I need to start filming more. I need to have better episodes. I need to put more time in my notes, put more time in this and that. So
yeah, that's amazing. And we don't look at this,
exactly,
you know, like what this person did to achieve that, you know, let me copy that. Let me copy, like, okay, if you're training every day, let me train every day. If I'm doing a podcast like 2 times a week, let me do that 2 times a week, you know, and try to do it. And then that's a great inspiration.
Exactly. And once you understand macro inspiration and micro inspiration, you also understand haters, and you also understand naysayers, and you also understand doubters, because when they doubt, when they hate, when you face naysayers, they are only talking about your macro achievements. They are only talking about your macro image that you've put out, but they haven't seen the micro achievements.
And you know, Ziyad, I never thought of it this way, but I think of it also from another part, because I always try to teach people wherever I have. Like if I have, I work in production, photography, video production, and I do podcasts, and I try to teach people all these things, and I give as much as I can, you know, and I have no problem with this. You know why? Because I always feel like if you will be like me, then you deserve to be like me.
Exactly.
If you will be better than me, you deserve that.
Exactly,
but it's not about it means that you've done the work, because you cannot be like me unless you've done the work or double it, and you'll be better than me.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to take these small inspiration and go through them, and that's why I have no problem with somebody who's better than me. I have no problem. He's done his homework.
Yeah.
You can't copy anybody.
Exactly.
Unless you do exactly or more than what he did, you know? So it's kind of similar. Like you can be inspired. You cannot copy. How long you can copy? I mean, you will be, one time you'll copy, but then you will not succeed in your life unless you do the same or better, you know, which is good for you.
Yeah, it's your own journey that you need to look for the small stuff. It's like a puzzle. It's your own journey that you need to find the pieces to piece out the puzzle with. For example, I'm very into, I love it. It's a very big passion of mine, production and directing and acting and all this. I like that field. So when we were filming the video for Vogue Arabia,
I saw that.
The one they did, the Youthquake, in Jeddah. So when we were working with a very big director there, and I wanted to take that micro inspiration from him, not the macro inspiration of he's here, he's filming with Vogue, but I wanted to see what he does, the small stuff that makes up his own journey that I could use with mine. And what he used to do was, with every single scene, with every different scene, he would play a different song from his phone. Just to get you in the mood of what he wants you to do, and to get himself in the mood of what he wants to ask you to do. So then I realized every single scene, the song doesn't even finish. He would just play the song until you're done filming the scene, and then, okay, the next scene he's filming another song. And I took that small micro inspiration into my own journey. Now when I'm training, I have different songs in training depending on what I'm doing in training, and depending on what type of focus I want in my training. So that's the micro inspiration from someone who has already achieved so much, someone who has already been working on the big projects, but this is not my goal right now. This is my goal eventually, but my goal right now is to, one, stay in the present. That's why I'm saying now. And two, is to get better now. So how am I going to get better now? Is to take those small micro inspirations that will make me achieve more in my present. And you know, that's just an example of keeping the micro and macro apart, because once you focus on the macro, comparison kills dreams. Comparison kills dreams. Comparison kills potential. And comparison kills your mood. You know, when you're on your journey, trying to achieve something, trying to go for something, trying to grow something, or grow yourself, comparison kills how you feel about it. Instead of enjoying the journey, instead of enjoying the micro achievements, the small achievements you're going to take, and knowing how to separate the result from the journey, comparison makes you just not enjoy the journey, because you are depending the journey based on how the result will be. But if you enjoy the journey, despite how the result of the journey will be, at least you had a good journey.
Yes.
If you had a bad result at the end of a good journey, you had a good journey. And if you had a good result at the end of a good journey, you had a good journey and a good result. So the journey does not have to be the same thing as the result. We can separate both, and comparison kills it.
You're keeping your eyes also focused on the other people, and then you're gonna miss on the way. You're gonna miss the enjoyment of your journey and this, and just putting, you know, all your it doesn't become your dreams anymore. It will become what I can do to compare myself with that person, and then you miss a lot on the way. You miss each and every feeling and how much you achieved, comparing yourself with your achievement, not with others. And then also applauding or you know, or rewarding yourself is very important.
Exactly. And
you know?
When you say rewarding yourself, it's so strange, don't you think, that when we compare ourselves to something, when we compare ourselves to people, we always only compare in the future. We always say, you know, I am not where I need to become now to be this later on. Or I am not gonna be like this person because they are doing A, B, and C, even though they are years ahead of you. But why don't you ever look back on your journey and see how far you've come? Why don't you ever look back on your journey and say, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling in doubt, when you feel like you're in a problem you're not going to get through, how about you look back on the problems you did get through, on the times of doubt that you did go through, on the times of pressure and stress that you did deal with, and you are here today because you've dealt with them. And you will be there tomorrow because you will deal with them today. So when you're only comparing, sometimes look back and see how far you've made it. And the biggest part to do that is mental health. Mental health too, when you've went through a struggling period in your life, or a dark period in your life, or a time of recovery. The problem with recovery and going through difficult times is every single day you feel like you haven't done enough, or every single day sometimes you feel like you aren't doing enough to be better later on, when sometimes you have to look back and say, but I did do enough before to become as good now, so I'm confident in doing better now to become better later on.
Yes. and not to avoid the conflict always, and not to fear from the conflict. And maybe the conflict is something we can look at it as a positive thing, because sometimes we just like, okay, we are only looking at the future, and we are waiting for this conflict that we are imagining that is going to come to us. But even if these conflicts will come, and you can see that it's coming towards you, you never know how much it's gonna, improve you, and it's gonna make you a better person and stronger. Go through the conflict and solve it. It's not a big deal. Once you are in the conflict, you're gonna feel that, it's maybe I made it like a giant thing. I made it a monster, but it's not that bad. So but we have this feeling of just like we want to avoid the conflict, where sometimes we need to face our problems. It's
amazing. Yeah, because the more you run away from your emotions, the more they'll always run after you. The more you avoid your emotions, the more they'll keep chasing you. But once you stop and you meet your emotions, you win. Despite what they do to you, if you stop and you try to deal with them, and you try to manage them, and you try to learn more about dealing with them, managing them, and all of this, then you win. But if you run from it, they will run from you. And if you try to avoid it, they'll keep chasing you. And it's just a never-ending cycle of you not being able to move on with your life because you're too busy running away from emotions, from a different incident that happened before, that's not allowing you to move on to the one after. So it is very important to stop and really meet those situations.
Yes, and I wish we can compare our other people's achievement the same way we compare. I wish we can compare our conflict to other people's conflict. We don't do that. We always compare. We always look for other people's achievements. We always look like he's successful, he's done that. But what about like he is miserable, for example? Why don't you compare yourself with him and see how good you are? Like we don't see other people's problem and take them as an example. We always look for what that person is achieving, and I doubt myself, and I keep myself down. Like if you look at the big problems, what's happening all over the world, I mean, your problem will become smaller as well. It's something that we don't do.
There's this saying that says there was this athlete, and he said that if everybody threw their problems in the middle of the table, you take your problem and run.
Yeah, that's the best problem.
Exactly. If everybody started throwing away all their problems in the middle of the table, you take your own problem and leave. I love my problem.
I'm comfortable.
I'll run with my problem. It's okay.
I'll take that.
Yeah, because your problem is made for you, right? Your problem is made for your own journey.
On your size.
Exactly. Your own journey, your own life. And it's all in perspective of, there are people who go through a lot more horrible problems than you do, but this is your problem to solve, this is their problem to solve. So it's again, if you throw everybody's problems in the middle, you're gonna take yours respectfully and walk away. You're not gonna be able to deal with the other stuff.
Ziyad, we want to talk about you. I mean, thanks a lot. I enjoyed the all these mental health topics. I love it. It's very important. I feel responsibility to talk about these topics because we all are vulnerable. We all have, including me, including also some guests that you will never thought they have insecurities, or they have mental health issues and problems, and you feel that they are successful, and we all have a problem,
as we should have.
Yes,
as we should have.
It's normal.
We should be vulnerable. We should have problems. We should be facing difficulties that we can't solve. We should be doing all that, and we are supposed to go through all that. It's actually the opposite. If I find somebody who is who has no problems, who isn't going through any difficulties, any situations, then there's something wrong.
There's something wrong.
Then there's something wrong.
And actually, there will be something wrong. If somebody doesn't have any mental problem, like mental, not like crazy or something, but just like not stressed, nothing. Exactly. There's something wrong.
Yeah, but it's one
like
thing.
Super relaxed.
But it's exactly. But it's one thing to have them, and it's another thing to be able to handle them. And again, like on that note, it's always important to remind ourselves that if we didn't teach ourselves everything naturally in the world, then we shouldn't expect to teach ourselves this as well. There are people who could teach it to us. So go speak, go seek that knowledge, not help. Go seek the knowledge, seek the wisdom, and
That's
just
great.
watch how your life peaks.
It's great to hear also about this topic from a positive person, from a person who just like, I don't know much about you in terms of how you feel from inside, what you went through in your childhood or what problem, but it's nice also that you are teaching people these things from, because most of the life coaches and people who talks about mental health, they come from a background, with all the respect, but they come from a background, it's very hurt, it's very traumatized, it's very from an area where they felt that they are down, they taught themselves to grow and to, but it's also nice to have it from you, and which I don't know. You might tell me. Well, I went through traumas, and so tell me more about you. Tell me how did you love your career or your passion in boxing, and you're a great athlete. You've just done a big event in Riyadh. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well,
the whole journey.
You know. It's crazy saying it in the beginning or very early in my career or at a young age, but once I start explaining more about my career, maybe you'll see it. But to kick things off, I want to say that I think that this career, or I was put in this career to do something a lot more than boxing, but do it through boxing, to reach so many people more than just the boxing people, but do it through boxing. So I feel like I was put in this career, you know, just to touch so many people or to change so much. I don't know it yet. Maybe I haven't done all of it yet, but I think boxing is a means of a way to do it through. You know, boxing isn't the final picture. Boxing isn't the biggest picture. And that's why when I'm always speaking to the media about this career, I always say this is a bigger than boxing story. This is a larger than life story, because the amount of history that's made for me to write in this career, for this sport, for my country and my side of the world is amazing in boxing, but it's so much history that will make noise outside of boxing. And then what would you use that noise to do? And I really believe that we are all where we're supposed to be, or we are all anywhere we're supposed to be, second because of how good we are in this field, but first because of how good we try to be personally, or how good you try to be for yourself. And that's why I always say, before you expect the best thing to happen for you, you need to try to be the best version of yourself before it happens for you. And that's what this career is really all about, you know.
And I feel also like especially with boxing is very mental game. It's a game that it's
all of it.
You need that focus. You need it also makes you switch off. I've tried it through a friend who does boxing, and he only does boxing to escape also from life, because he has also a lot of, you know, mental tough problems or things that happened in his childhood, and the only escape was boxing, and he get me through it, and just like, Hikmat, let's train boxing, forget the gym, like the weight training, and let's go through. And I find it so mental. It makes you focus, and it makes you actually, you have to focus, otherwise you get punched.
Of course,
you know,
exactly.
and you have to always think about the moves and this. So it's a great sport, but you're taking it as a mean to pass messages and to make a podcast and talk about mental health, which is amazing.
It's definitely, for me in my career, it's 90% mental. 90%. The 10% of the physical, I think anybody can do. It's the 90% mental that I don't think anybody can do, because growing up in a boxing system in the Arab world, and now competing with people from Europe and America in all my fights, I have to use the lack of equipment that I had back when I started boxing in Saudi Arabia. There was practically nothing. You know, you're talking about almost 10 years ago. So over 10 years ago. So I have to use that lack of experience, that lack of equipment, the lack of knowledge that we had. There was no boxing on TV, for example. So I have to use this to still be as good as the Americans and the Europeans and the South Americans, you know, and still compete with them very competitively. And that's why I say my journey is 90%, because I am the first professional boxer from Saudi Arabia. I could become the first professional boxer from Saudi Arabia and the Arab world to become a world champion, to become a multi-weight champion or a multi-title champion. So there is so much to achieve. There is so much expectations to live up to. There is so much pressure to rise up to, because now, what are the chances? And this is what I mean by, you know, this was meant or this was written. So what are the chances that a young Saudi kid trains boxing in a time where boxing wasn't a thing at all in the Arab world or in Saudi Arabia, trains boxing for 10 years, and after 10, 11 years, Saudi Arabia decide to completely reform, Vision 2030 starts, and the sport that Saudi Arabia chooses to focus on the most is boxing. And by coincidence, there is already someone who is ready for it, who has been training, has been working. And what are the chances that Saudi Arabia find him and they say, we are with you, we are behind you, and let's do it. It's like
very
you're
low.
ready. You know,
you would never thought about it.
It takes decades to build a professional boxer. You know, now amateur boxing and professional boxing are very different things. It's like tennis and ping pong, very similar, but very different as well. It takes decades to do that. So what are the chances that this happens? You know, your country chooses to invest the biggest in this sport and you're already in that sport. And it's just, it's a lot of mental pressure, but alhamdulillah,
it's great.
With Saudi Arabia, honestly, with the help, it's been tremendous.
It's amazing, yeah. And you said, what are the chances? Really, it was like, we'll never thought about it.
And I never said this before on a podcast, by the way. I've never spoken about this. I've never said it out loud. You know, I've always just kept it to myself, but you feel like, you know, maybe there's a higher power to this career, to this story, where it's so exciting. It makes me want to ride it off until the end, you know, just go through until the end. If something so rare happened with this career, where the country and me and the sport, then something is hidden later on.
Something is meant to be, but the pressure is higher now.
But the pressure is amazing though.
It's your game.
The pressure, because it brings so much privilege. So there's something known about me in the mainstream media or in the boxing world, and so many people love it, but so many people don't. So many people support it, so many people hate on it. But it's that I'm a fighter that only fights on the big fights, on the big events. And of course, this is first and foremost due to Allah, you know, and what God has given me with my career, but also with the support of Saudi Arabia and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, His Royal Highness the Minister of Sports Prince Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Faisal, and now His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, with what they are doing for my career, with what they have helped do for me. I'm only that fighter that fights on the biggest fights, because Saudi Arabia is only doing the biggest fights. Exactly. Yes. And now the Saudi Arabian fighter is only expected to fight on the biggest fights. And like you said, that's so much pressure, because in my learning fights, which are the first 10 to 15 fights, they're called your learning fights. My learning fights are in front of millions watching on TV and thousands in the arena. So all the little mistakes that I make, that I'm learning from, so many people are seeing, so many people are watching, and a lot of people come and hate on it, but also a lot of people come and support it. So I've seen so much so early on. I've dealt with so much pressure and stress and expectations mentally so early on that maybe other fighters didn't have to. But it's such a privilege though. It's so much pressure, but it's a privilege to fight in front of millions. It's a privilege to fight in front of thousands, and it's a privilege to write history for my country on such a big stage. Now, does that pressure sometimes break me? Does that mental health struggle sometimes, push me to the edge? It does. I can't tell you it doesn't, but there's so much beauty in learning how to be standing on that edge, but then to start walking back. There's so much beauty in that, in seeing how much better you start handling it, fight by fight, piece by piece, part by part, and then
I think enjoy the
own
process.
journey. Exactly.
This is something. It's an opportunity. It's something that meant to be. It's that
Exactly.
that universe.
It looks like it.
Yes,
It
universe.
looks like maybe.
Yes, and it's, as you said, it's not only. It's the focus of the sport in KSA, and they are supporting, and there's so many events happening as well. And
it's a big change. It's a big change. But there's something that I really want to speak about, that I've learned from when you say the pressure and the stress and the expectations. It's that I went through a phase where everything seemed like it was done. Everything seemed like it was taken away from me. It was done, and that's it. Maybe I'm not gonna fight again. Of course, I was going crazy in my head. These are stuff that would never happen in that situation. But I was so scared at the time, and I was so worried at the time, and I was overthinking so much, where I thought this is what was gonna happen. And again, I've never spoken about this. I don't know why I'm speaking about this, but maybe there's a reason. And I realized that when that period happened to me, and that was only a few months ago, I started watching the fights, and I started watching my videos, and I document everything. I have one of my best friends. He documents all the journey. He's with me everywhere. And I'm watching the fights, watching the videos. I'm fighting on the biggest fights. Cristiano Ronaldo watching my fights. Mike Tyson.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Conor McGregor. and I'm fighting in front of 30,000. And then I'm watching these videos after the moment is done. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying that moment now. But then I let the pressure and the stress get to me. I didn't enjoy the camp. The training camp is 2 months before a fight. So I didn't enjoy the journey, which is the camp. I didn't enjoy fighting in front of thousands and millions watching, because I let the pressure and the size of the occasion take away from the small good moments. I let those expectations of what I have to achieve, imposter syndrome, the stress and what people think I will become. Will I become that every single time I fight? I let that take away from the enjoyment. I let that take away from the moment. So after it was all taken away from me, I thought it was all done. I started watching and I started enjoying them. So then I thought to myself, I was like, I messed up. I messed up, because how good would have that match been? How good would have that camp been? And how good would have that specific moment been if I enjoyed it like I am now, but in that moment? If I enjoyed it in that same moment it happened, how good would that have been? And I started praying. I was like, Ya Rabb, if you give it to me again, this time I want to do it right. And I was on the edge. I was on the edge mentally because of the career and how much pressure and the expectations and what they can do to you. And then alhamdulillah, it all came back.
Yeah, and I believe if you enjoy the training, if you enjoy the fight, you might perform better.
Yeah, a lot better. And even if you don't, you enjoy the training.
Exactly.
You enjoy the journey. That's the thing. It's like you have to train like you enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy the journey like you will enjoy the fight.
Yes.
And when
regardless
all that
of the goal.
So when it all came back to me, I every single time I faced pressure or a problem, I said, look, this problem or this pressure is not as bad as all this being taken away from me like it did before. So I'm just going to enjoy it. I never know when it's going to be taken away. I never know when it's going to be done. Even though you can say, I'm an athlete, I will retire 30 something, this and that, I want to achieve, you never know. So enjoy every moment really like it's your last. And sometimes you won't go through that until you learn the hard way. And when you go through something so bad, when you go through something so, not say bad, I'll say difficult. When you go through something so difficult, how much of a toll it takes on you will depend on how fast you need the lesson. And how long it lasts when you're going through it will depend on how much you need from the lesson. So how much of a toll it takes on you depends on how fast you need it, and how long it lasts will depend on how much you need from the lesson. And that's the biggest thing I learned from pressure and stress in the journey.
Ziyad, you mentioned that the age, and I mean, Mike Tyson is just fighting. He has a fight now. He's almost 60. He's 58 years old, and he's still fighting. What do you think of these fights that's happening with the YouTubers and influencers, and Mike Tyson fighting the YouTuber at an age of almost 60? What do you think? It's an entertainment. It's something that you feel like has to happen. The mix between MMA and boxing, and it's nice. I mean, it's entertaining. What's your opinion about it?
Just to start about the Mike Tyson thing, I'll say that nobody wants to see
him
Mike Tyson fighting at 60 years old. You know, it's. I hope there's something done behind the scenes that we don't know about, where it's entertainment and, you know, they've agreed. I really hope that this is the case, because at 60, you shouldn't get punched in the head. You know, at 30, you shouldn't get punched in the head. And this is something we know in the sport. And Mike Tyson has achieved so much. He has so much. And so I believe because I've seen the business side of boxing, I think that maybe there's something done behind the scenes. I don't think Jake Paul would want to hurt a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. So that aside, you know, Mike Tyson is a great, he can do whatever he wants to do. Nobody can say anything. So this is something that he wants to do. He's his own great person, so he can choose that. But in terms of the YouTubers and influencers boxing, I actually don't mind that, as long as they stay in their own field. So I don't want to see YouTubers and influencers calling out the real boxers. You know, if you are fighting each other and you are doing the events in between each other, that's actually great.
No, but actually they already called the real
boxers. I know. That's the problem. That's the part where I don't like. You know, but
Mayweather, I think one of them.
Yeah. They've brought in a new audience to the sport. They've really grown the sport.
Which is a positive thing.
Exactly. They've grown the sport. You can't say they haven't. They've brought in a lot of interest to the sport. You can't say they haven't. And a new audience, the younger generation, the kids, all of that, the people that didn't care about boxing, because of them, they now care and they now watch. So they're doing a lot of good in boxing. But it's just when you start comparing yourself to the greats in real boxing, when you see, for example, Jake Paul calling out Canelo.
No,
it's like, okay, I respect that you have those dreams and aspirations, but at least respectfully call him out. The guy, it's Canelo. It's like he's levels away, you know. So it's just as long as there's separation.
Yeah, as long as it's growing the sport, and I'm happy about it. Because I know that MMA took a lot audience from the boxing. You know, so it's.
But now the script is flipped, to be honest, especially with boxing, and what Saudi Arabia is doing, what His Excellency
I love
Sheikh
both.
is doing. Yeah, it's. Yes, honestly, but now the script is flipping big time.
I love both. Yani I know sometimes, like, you know, Kaltoum. She has the best voice, but we were, as kids, we were like, she's too old, or like it's not for us. But then when George Rassouf started singing for her, I was like, we start to love Kaltoum. Anyway, so there was a new generation at that time introduced you to a sport that you didn't like, or maybe you didn't have a fan with, but like, I mean, a lot of young generation now love sports, love MMA, love boxing, maybe through these influencers. Why not?
Yeah.
Ziyad, thank you so much. Thanks
Thank you.
for coming. I really enjoyed. I thought it's gonna be all boxing, but I'm very happy that we talked about the mental health and mental toughness and taking care of ourselves and from that aspect and achieving our goals and be good to ourselves and be forgiving and all these topics. Thanks a lot, Ziyad.
Definitely, of course. Thank you for having me. This is a podcast I've always had my sights on, and when I saw the email, sign me up.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.